It was a dark and stormy night when two best friends, Adam and Victor, decided to go exploring an abandoned house on the outskirts of their small town. The old, run-down house had been the talk of the town for years, with rumors of strange occurrences and unexplained disappearances surrounding it. Undeterred by the rumors, Adam and Victor packed a bag with flashlights, snacks, and their phones, ready for an adventure. As they approached the house, they noticed that the front door was slightly ajar, creaking in the wind. Despite the eerie feeling in their stomachs, they pushed the door open and stepped inside. The house was filled with cobwebs and dust, and the air was musty and stale. As they explored the first floor, they found nothing out of the ordinary, just old furniture and peeling wallpaper. But as they made their way up to the second floor, things began to feel different. The air grew colder, and they could hear faint whispers coming from the walls. Suddenly, Victor disappeared from sight. "Victor, where are you?" Adam shouted, but there was no response. Frantically searching the room, Adam found a strange doorway hidden behind a bookshelf. With no other options, he stepped through it and found himself in a seemingly endless maze of empty, yellow-tinted rooms. Adam quickly realized he was no longer in the abandoned house. He had been teleported to the infamous Backrooms, a place where reality was distorted and danger lurked around every corner. As he navigated his way through the labyrinth, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being washed by something sinister. The only thing Adam knew for sure was that he needed to find Victor and get out of this place before it was too late. Adam moved slowly, his hand brushing against the cold, concrete wall as he walked. The humming sound that had been faint at first grew louder as he walked deeper into the backrooms. Suddenly, he heard a distant sound, like a muffled scream coming from one of the nearby rooms. Without thinking, he bolted towards the source of the noise, his heart racing in his chest. As he got closer, the sound grew louder and more desperate. Adam burst through the door, and his heart sank as he saw Victor lying on the ground, writhing in pain. His body was contorted in an unnatural way, and his eyes were rolled back in his head. "Victor, oh my God, what happened?" Adam cried, rushing to his friend's side. "I don't know, man," Victor gasped, his voice barely audible. "It was like something grabbed me and twisted my body. I can't move." Adam looked around frantically, searching for a way out. The room was completely empty, with no doors or windows in sight. "We need to find a way out of here," Adam said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We can't stay here." Suddenly, the walls started to shake, and the hum grew louder, drowning out their voices. Adam looked up and saw that the ceiling was starting to crack, pieces of plaster raining down on them. "We have to move now," Adam yelled, grabbing Victor's arm and pulling him to his feet. The two friends stumbled through the maze of rooms, the shaking growing more intense with each step they took. Adam could feel the ground giving way beneath his feet, and he knew they had to find an exit fast. Finally, they stumbled into a small room with a single door. Without hesitation, they threw it open and stumbled out into the open air. The backrooms disappeared behind them, and they were back in the abandoned house once more. Adam and Victor collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air and trying to process what had just happened. "That was the scariest thing I've ever experienced," Victor said, his voice trembling. "We need to get out of here and never come back," Adam replied, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of danger. They got up, gathered their things, and made their way out of the house. As they walked away, they both knew that they had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death, and they vowed to never speak of the backrooms again. As they walked back to their homes, both Adam and Victor were quiet, lost in their own thoughts. They had both seen and experienced things that they never could have imagined before, and the terror of the backrooms was still fresh in their minds. Finally, Victor spoke up. "Do you think anyone will believe us if we tell them what happened?" Adam shook his head. "I don't think anyone would believe us. They would probably think we're crazy or making it up." Victor nodded in agreement. "Yeah, you're right. We'll have to keep it to ourselves." As they arrived at their respective homes, they said their goodbyes and went inside. Adam couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, even though he was back in the safety of his own home. That night, he had nightmares about the backrooms, about the endless maze of yellow-tinted rooms and the unknown dangers lurking in the shadows. He woke up in a cold sweat, feeling like something was watching him from the darkness. In the following days, both Adam and Victor tried to move on from their experience, but they couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed in them. They were more paranoid, more cautious, always looking over their shoulders and scanning their surroundings. And even though they never spoke of the backrooms to anyone else, they both knew that it would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The memory of that night would always be with them, a constant reminder that sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't explain or understand. As the days turned into weeks, Adam and Victor tried to put the backrooms behind them. They went about their normal routines, went to school, and hung out with friends, but they both knew that they would never forget what they had experienced. One day, a few weeks after their encounter with the backrooms, Adam was sitting in class, trying to focus on the lesson, when he felt a strange sensation wash over him. It was like a cold breeze had blown through the room, and suddenly, he was back in the backrooms. He looked around frantically, but he was alone. The walls were the same sickly yellow color, and the hum was as loud as ever. He tried to call out for Victor, but his voice was swallowed up by the endless maze of rooms. As he stumbled through the backrooms, he could feel his sanity slipping away. The endless repetition of the rooms was maddening, and the constant hum made it hard to think. He started to feel like he was being watched, like there was something lurking in the shadows just out of sight. Suddenly, he heard a sound that made his blood run cold. It was a faint, guttural growling sound, like some kind of beast was lurking nearby. He turned to run, but he found himself face to face with a creature that he couldn't even begin to describe. It was humanoid in shape, but its skin was a sickly shade of gray, and its eyes glowed an eerie green. It had razor-sharp teeth, and its hands ended in claws that looked like they could tear through steel. Adam tried to run, but the creature was too fast. It lunged at him, and he felt its claws tear through his flesh. He screamed in pain, and suddenly, he was back in the classroom, his classmates staring at him in horror. He looked down and saw that his arm was bleeding, and he knew that what had happened in the backrooms was real. The creature had followed him out, and it wasn't done with him yet. Adam's heart raced as he tried to compose himself. He didn't know how the creature had followed him out of the backrooms, but he knew that it was real and that it was dangerous. He looked around the classroom, but none of his classmates seemed to have noticed anything unusual. He tried to focus on the lesson, but his mind was racing with fear and confusion. What was happening to him? Why was the creature following him? Was he still trapped in the backrooms, or had it followed him out into the real world? As soon as class was over, Adam bolted out of the room and made his way to the bathroom. He locked himself in a stall and tried to calm himself down. He examined his arm and saw that the wound was deep, but it didn't seem to be bleeding anymore. He splashed cold water on his face and tried to compose himself. He needed to find Victor and tell him what had happened. They needed to figure out how to get rid of the creature and make sure it couldn't hurt anyone else. As he made his way out of the bathroom, he felt a chill run down his spine. He felt like he was being watched, like the creature was still nearby. He looked around, but he didn't see anything unusual. Suddenly, he heard a low growling sound, and he knew that the creature was still following him. He started to run, but he knew that he couldn't outrun it forever. He needed to find Victor and come up with a plan before it was too late. Adam burst through the doors of the school and ran as fast as he could towards Victor's house. He could feel the creature getting closer and closer, its growls becoming louder and more menacing. When he finally arrived at Victor's house, he banged on the door, shouting his friend's name. He could hear the creature closing in, its claws scraping against the pavement. He tried the doorknob, but it was locked. Just as he thought he was done for, the door opened, and Victor pulled him inside. They slammed the door shut, and Adam collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath. "What the hell is going on?" Victor asked, looking at Adam's bleeding arm. Adam took a few deep breaths before telling Victor about his experience in the classroom and the creature that was following him. Victor's eyes widened in terror as he listened to the story. "We have to do something," Adam said, fear and desperation in his voice. "We can't let that thing hurt anyone else." Victor nodded in agreement. "We'll figure something out. We have to. But first, we need to get you patched up." He went to get the first aid kit, and as he worked on Adam's arm, they discussed their options. They knew they had to go back to the abandoned house and find a way to destroy the backrooms and the creature that lurked within. But as they made their plans, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were in way over their heads. They didn't know what they were dealing with, and they didn't know if they could survive another encounter with the creature. But they knew that they had to try. They couldn't let the backrooms and the creature continue to haunt their lives and the lives of others. They would do whatever it takes to put an end to the nightmare once and for all. After some brainstorming, Adam and Victor decided to head back to the abandoned house that same night. They knew it was risky, but they couldn't let fear control them anymore. They had to face the creature and destroy it, no matter the cost. They packed a bag with flashlights, some improvised weapons, and some food and water, and started their journey towards the house. The streets were empty, and the only sound was the wind rustling through the trees. As they approached the house, they could feel the fear creeping back into their hearts, but they pushed it aside and entered the building, their flashlights illuminating the dark hallway. They made their way to the room with the yellow wallpaper and found the doorway that led to the backrooms. It was still there, gaping open like a black hole, beckoning them to enter. Adam and Victor hesitated for a moment, but they knew they had to do this. They stepped through the doorway, and the world around them dissolved into chaos. The fluorescent lights flickered and buzzed, and the walls seemed to stretch and bend in impossible ways. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the ground was spongy and wet beneath their feet. They could hear the creature's growls getting louder and more aggressive, and they knew they didn't have much time. They had to find a way to destroy the backrooms and the creature before it was too late. As they moved deeper into the backrooms, they realized that the place was much larger than they had anticipated. They passed endless corridors and rooms, each one more disturbing than the last. The walls were covered in strange symbols and hieroglyphs, and they felt like they were being watched from every angle. Finally, they reached a large open space, and in the center of it stood the creature. It was even more terrifying than they remembered, with its long claws, razor-sharp teeth, and glowing red eyes. But they didn't hesitate. They charged at the creature, weapons raised, ready to destroy it once and for all. As Adam and Victor charged towards the creature, it let out an ear-piercing screech that shook the backrooms. They tried to hit the creature, but the creature was too fast, dodging every hit. It lunged at Victor as he swung his weapon with all his might, but it was too late. The creature's claws sliced through his flesh like butter, and he fell to the ground, blood gushing from his wounds. Adam screamed in horror and ran, dodging the creature's attacks, but he knew it was only a matter of time before it caught him. He frantically searched for a way out, but the backrooms seemed to have no end. Finally, he stumbled upon a door, and he burst through it, hoping for salvation. But instead, he found himself in a room he had never seen before. The walls were covered in a pulsing, organic substance, and the air was filled with the sound of dripping slime. He felt something cold and slimy wrap around his ankle, and he screamed in terror as he was pulled towards the center of the room. The last thing he saw was the creature's glowing eyes as it descended upon him, tearing him apart in a flurry of claws and teeth.